So privacy, just a small topic to end, the conference with. I think it's come up in, if not every session, perhaps almost every other session. But so far, the discussions on privacy perhaps have been a little bit big picture. So I wanted to start by actually asking, what information do you think it's important to keep private? And who are you trying to keep it private from?
That's the right question. Because everyone always assumes the person you're trying to keep it private from is your government. And that's almost never there's very few people who it's really important to them to keep something private from their government, but almost everyone, it's really important to them to keep things private from nosy neighbors, enemy governments that are trying to interfere in your democracy, extortionists who are trying to blackmail you.
But Zooko, doesn't this mean that we should use systems where the government has a backdoor key because no one's worried about their government?
That's a great question. We're already off the script that we had prepared for this.
I think it's more important.
This is the right person to answer that question.
Lately I have been worried about foreign intel services spying on you because they attacked our elections. But before that, I always felt that it was especially important to try to limit what intel agencies can do with their domestic populations, because they have such powerful tools as an intel agency, like NSA's capabilities. You wouldn't want them turning that on to the American civil population. In fact, when U.S. intelligence agencies were, like NSA, were created after World War II, the legal mechanism that created them recognized that it is especially harmful for governments to spy on their own population. So, if I live in California, I might not want the East German Stasi to spy on me during the Cold War. But even if they did, I would find that annoying, but I wouldn't have to worry about, in the middle of the night, someone kicking my door in and dragging me off, into an underground detention facility in East Germany.
So this is the opposite of the argument that I just was making.
Well, I'm trying to say that if you live in an autocratic regime, it's especially important to have privacy against your own government monitoring your secrets, and so that's why I have some agreement with Snowden about his decision to expose domestic spying, because I think domestic spying in particular is harmful to a democracy. I think maybe if I were Snowden, I might have revealed a smaller amount of information, like U.S. signals intelligence in foreign countries. I might have left that alone and focused on the domestic spying.
So, in answer to Vitalik's challenge, I'm thinking about all the central bank digital cash projects. Like almost every central bank has said that they're interested in figuring out if they can use this new technology to generate some kind of digital cash. And I think at some point they're going to have to think about privacy, and there are three options. One is fully transparent blockchains like Bitcoin and Ethereum. And then I'm pretty sure they're going to realize that's just a non-starter. Like none of their people can use that for commerce or business or anything, because that wouldn't be safe. And then the next option is fully encrypted blockchains like Zcash. And then the third option is what Vitalik just proposed, which was a backdoor for that government. So everyone who uses that currency, the government that issues that currency can see all their transactions, but other people can't. And I think that's kind of plausible. I think it's technically possible, But I wonder if they want it, because wouldn't it mean, don't all these governments really want their currency to be used by foreigners? Isn't there this whole desire?
I mean, cryptocurrencies are global. It's one of the nice things about Ethereum and Bitcoin. So why do we think that the national governments are the ones that have the right to see into those transactions?
Well, my question isn't whether they have a moral right, but would they choose? What I want to know is, suppose you tell them, okay, first of all, the purely transparent ones are right out, right? There's nobody can use it. So let's take that one off the table. Now you get either the what do you call these? The privileged insight ones or the fully private ones. And then what if you say, okay, you can build and deploy the privileged insight one, but you have to realize that people in other countries may choose not to use it. Or you could have like a border-spanning global currency, and anyone around the world might choose to use your currency if it, satisfies their needs. I wonder which one they choose.
Well, that's already true for a lot of the major currencies.
Yeah, see, they would,
dollars are used in Russia,
Yeah. So that's why I wonder if they wouldn't prefer the latter option in order to try to get greater usage instead of to get greater information insight.
Yeah, and another argument that I've brought up is that governments can get hacked. I mean, recently, and I know there was some news about a hack in China fairly recently, where a very large number of just social media accounts with identifying information got leaked. And I heard news about similar hacks in other countries on smaller scales. Today, top of the Ethereum subreddit, there's this someone made an ICO, and people it was an airdrop where you had to submit KYC information to get the airdrop, and they hosted it on some terrible WordPress setup, and 15,000 passports got leaked. So, these centralized kind of backdoor systems, you're just, even from purely technical point of view, you have the kind of the powers that be just have less power over the technical power that be than you think you do.
Right. That's true. I don't know if they realize it or if they have hubris.
So it's an interesting point that you almost can't trust other people with your information. But blockchains, by allowing things to be decentralized, do they hold the promise of allowing us to reclaim privacy? At the moment, we worry that all our information is centralized in Facebook, and that's what's been destroying our privacy. Are blockchains the answer to that?
Yeah, so part of the reason why I think, unfortunately, part of this kind of cryptocurrency trends that Phil dislikes is that, at least when I've possibly unintentionally used kind of that abbreviation, I was trying to call attention to the idea that it's not just blockchain. And interesting applications that actually do have the properties that we want will combine aspects of blockchains with other forms of cryptography that are kind of totally not blockchains. And at least when I say crypto, I kind of mean the whole ensemble of both blockchains and cryptography that has nothing to do with blockchains put together. And I think there's a very natural kind of synergy between those two things, because blockchains are an information security technology that gives you guarantees of authenticity, correctness, manipulation and censorship resistance at a very high cost to privacy. And traditional cryptography basically gets you the privacy back. And so the two almost kind of fit together like a jigsaw puzzle. And so I think very clearly a version of Facebook where we all shove our data on the blockchain is not going to fix anything, but a version of Facebook where there is more kind of self-sovereign data control and where blockchains are used as an ingredient for some things as part of that, I think is definitely something that's very worth looking into.
And Facebook has announced that Facebook is pivoting to that direction.
Yeah,
the crypto direction, not the blockchain direction and the crypto direction, both.
Yeah, and I was definitely excited to see like Zuck's kind of message describe the about face. I mean, of course, it hasn't turned into anything substantive yet, but we'll see. And like with that in the blockchain announcement, like if they actually make some significant foray into even like self-sovereign identity or data into any of those things, it could just be so interesting.
Yeah.
When you said Facebook's pivoting in that direction, you said both blockchain and crypto. Did you mean cryptocurrency or crypto?
I meant
Cryptography.
cryptography. They're pivoting to both
That's
blockchain and
good.
cryptography.
Yeah, okay.
But talking about that,
I have the solution
I
for
would
you.
postulate that there is not a single creator of a cryptocurrency, as in real software engineer, creator, cryptographer, creator of the cryptocurrency, that would approve of the widespread use of the word crypto to mean cryptocurrency. Everybody who ever created a real cryptocurrency knows that crypto means cryptography.
I have a solution for you. We're all getting together and we're going to rename cryptocurrencies to cybercoins.
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
What's wrong with that?
Cybercoins.
Nothing.
You heard
Yeah.
it here first.
I
actually
could sign up for that.
like this.
Here, I
'cause,
have
like,
a sticker here for you.
Thanks.
Like, I'm honestly just really unsatisfied with calling this industry blockchain because it just focuses attention to totally the wrong thing. Like, even, Ethereum 2.0, it's not even a chain. Like, it's a weird hub and spoke, like, three-dimensional DAG thing.
We're switching to block hub and spoke DAG.
Block hub and spoke DAG revolution, fair decentralized economy.
while the slogans are great, I'm not sure they're going to get us privacy. And actually, looking at Ethereum 2.0, I didn't see privacy coming until perhaps the very end. Do you not think it should be a higher priority?
So this comes into a distinction between kind of layer 1 privacy and layer 2 privacy. So in Ethereum, I feel like we, especially on the 2.0 side, emphasize this layer 2 direction a lot. So like, for example, yesterday at the Sol Ethereum meetup, I gave this talk where I talked about these ZK rollup techniques that basically are this layer 2 technique for improving scalability. I also talked about layer 2 techniques for improving cross-shard transaction speed. So privacy is also something that can theoretically totally be done on layer 2, right? It's a Turing-complete general-purpose programming language, and you can write the code that verifies snarks and starks and sonics. Yeah. So
I disagree because privacy isn't an additive feature, it's a subtractive feature. So if there's 2 layers and one of them exposes all of your data to Russian hackers and the other one doesn't, you still lose?
it depends on like what we mean by layers here, right? So what I mean by layer 2 is this kind of very broad thing that where programming languages are layer 2s basically. So like we could have programming languages that basically compile smart contracts into code that generates and verifies proofs for ZK snarks and do this on top of a general purpose layer 1.
You know, something that I've always felt that when we lived in a society where you could carry cash around in your pocket and you could walk into a bookstore and buy a book with it,
You can
and
still
nobody
do that.
could correlate the purchase of the book with the payment mechanism. Nobody knows that you bought the book. You walk out with the book in your hand. You can take the book home. You could read it. Nobody knows you're reading this subversive book. Well, that goes for all kinds of cash transactions. And for thousands of years, we've had cash that society was not harmed by the ability to have anonymous cash. On the other hand, if there's UN sanctions against a country that is moving billions of dollars around, maybe it would be nice to be able to detect that if there was a digital currency. So how could we have both? How can we design a system that recognizes that there's nothing wrong, there's nothing questionable, there's nothing suspicious about the entire population having the ability to conduct small cash transactions of maybe even a few $1,000s without having to have it recorded and scrutinized by governments or criminals or whoever it is that's trying to track you. So in that respect, Zcash is attractive for the low end. But I'd like to try to figure out, is there some way to detect hundreds of millions of dollars being moved around? Because probably that's for something that isn't good. That's harmful to society.
I can't think of one.
Yeah.
So one other kind of part of this discussion, I think, is that look, we're sitting here as designers of crypto protocols, and in this case, including cybercoin components, including cryptographic components, and so it's
And block tags.
yeah, and block tags, and that. But there are other protocol designers out there, and if we decide that we're going to be kind of high and mighty with our social responsibility, and we decide that what that means is finding ways to reduce privacy for transactions over $2 million, but then let's say Monero decides to screw that, and we're not going to do it. So, might there be an economic equilibrium that would make that different?
And also, the legacy banking system, which still is currently winning,
And
last I checked, and is
and
the 99% of all the high-value money laundering.
North Korea running a CBDC where only they can see everything. And I think to answer the question, though, I do think there's things that can be done. So particularly systems do have network effects, and systems do become easier, and they even privacy has network effects because you have a larger anonymity set. The more people you use a system, and the more people use a system, the less it's the case that by using the system you're singling yourself out as suspicious. So, if there are systems that do do end up kind of being the most mainstream, I actually do think there is some opportunity to adjust them if that's what we end up deciding is needed.
Do you not think we actually need to provide a way for regulators to understand what's going on? I mean, regulators are already uncomfortable with cryptocurrencies. Making them fully private, would that not make them even more, upset?
And I think it's important to also remember that they do have a lot of other eyes into the cryptocurrency ecosystem. So, for example, there's exchanges have KYC requirements, and they can subpoena those, and this has already been used to catch. I think it's been used to catch some of the FBI criminals that tried to steal money from the Silk Road case. I think, and it's been used in some other contexts. There's also just the kind of non-currency side of any unit of economic activity.
The way that happened wasn't that the government went searching, it was that a cryptocurrency exchange did what's we call a suspicious activity report, which is that this government agent was depositing vast amounts of money, and when they asked him where he got it, he said, "Don't you ask me questions, I'm a government agent." So then they went and contacted the government and reported him. I'm not sure what the moral of this story is.
Well, actually, I think one of the morals of the story is that kind of information being distributed can make society more democratic on a technical level. But what I mean by that is basically that, if the practical ability to rat people out is spread out among more people, then that makes it more likely that things that people actually get caught for are actually going to be things that are genuinely unpopular.
Just thinking, what are the lessons? I mean, Phil, you've had a real career of advocating for privacy. What lessons do you think cryptocurrency should learn from that history? Are there some mistakes that we're just clearly going to make again if we don't read the history books?
Well, are you talking about like tactical experience and about public policy or legislation or
I guess, yeah, either dealing with public policy, but also perhaps in getting the level of privacy, too low or too high when people are designing blockchains?
Well, when I think about things that we've done over the decades about protecting privacy using technology, cryptography, I feel like we've been working on things that we know how to do because we're cryptographers and engineers. And so that's where it's like when you lose your contact lens and you're looking for it under the street light and somebody asks you, where did you lose it? And you, well, it was across the street over there in the dark. Well, why are you looking here? Because the light's better. We know how to do cryptography, so we focus on that. And what we're missing is that the largest, most catastrophic erosions of our privacy have not been in the areas that we know how to solve. They've been instead the proliferation of surveillance technology with video cameras that can identify our faces, with 3D face recognition and deep learning neural nets to put it all together. And we're seeing just a massive erosion of privacy from this. And even when we try to stop it with public policy, the technology is being developed anyway in other countries where those public policy pressures don't exist. And so, I think that when I think about all the attention on cryptocurrencies, well, what is the right blend of cryptographic functions? I don't feel like we're going to win in a large sense because there's just such massive advances in surveillance technology.
What a downer.
Yeah, well,
I mean, if we can't win, if we're going to have our privacy removed...
Well, let me say something about, we can't win, What I mean, look, I don't want to paralyze people. If you tell people that, just give up and just stop swimming and sink to the bottom of the frog water or something, it has a paralyzing effect. And, we have to try as hard as we can. And to some extent, we do, because we're cryptographers and engineers, we can do some things with technology. But look, I don't think cryptocurrency is big enough to make a dent in the advances in surveillance technology. I mean, there is something that is fairly big. We do have end-to-end secure encrypted communications now on a large scale with a couple billion people using it. So that's kind of a new thing that we didn't enjoy before. Now we've got it. So that makes a difference. But the scale of cryptocurrencies is tiny right now, and it's too volatile to scale up. So, maybe if we could figure out ways to make it more attractive to people, then maybe it will scale up. And if it scales up, then maybe that will make a dent in privacy. But to make it more attractive, there's a lot of problems we have to solve with it.
We can learn from HTTPS and from end-to-end encrypted messaging. There's two success stories.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So, in terms of making digital quote self-sovereignty, to use the buzzword to describe everything at scale, there are kind of practical impediments that I think we've already seen with even just end-to-end messaging. So one of them is just users' ability to just hold and keep track of and not lose their own private keys. So when I even talks to people from some of these large corporations and I ask why aren't you end-to-end encrypting everything, they basically say, we get these millions of customer service requests every day, and if we had no ability to recover accounts, then the problems there would just increase by a factor of 100. And the other challenge would be just the insecurity of software that we use today. Like
Well,
having.
excuse me, what was the context of what you said they couldn't do it? Because
Yeah, I was going
yeah.
to ask the same question.
what was
because
that?
It was.
Was that a
not WhatsApp,
cryptocurrency related thing?
No,
Which
or-
isn't
no.
encrypted.
No, and I probably don't want to say the company because it was a private meeting. But
I
it
don't
was
need
a
to know
major
the
one.
company, but what's the general
No, and-
subject
Well,
matter?
I just
So-
wonder if their experience contradicts the experience of WhatsApp, which surely they don't have many more users than WhatsApp has.
I do. I mean, this isn't my only data point. Like I have heard other data points that this kind of account recovery thing is a really major sticking point.
Oh yeah,
And-
okay. So it's account recovery rather than. So with WhatsApp, if you lose your private key, you lose the ability to review the history of your conversation, but you don't lose the
Yeah.
ability to log into your account. I agree that's an unsolved problem. And it's equivalent to the unsolved problem in cryptocurrency if you lose all your money.
Well, see, that's one of the things we have to do. If we want to scale it up, then we're going to have to solve the problem of people having to search through landfills for disk drives. We have to solve that. In fact, I would recommend much more wider use of Blakely-Shamir secret sharing as a built-in feature that everyone expects to see and everyone and it is easy and encouraged to use.
Yeah.
So this is why I was a big fan of the HTC blockchain phone because they basically implemented exactly that.
Yeah, I just heard about this.
Who is?
The HTC blockchain phone, which Vitalik has a demo model here.
Yeah.
Okay.
They now owe you like a $10,000.
And so they're trying to, so they protect you from
literally-
losing your assets by
They
using
literally
Shamir secret
have
sharing,
a,
and you pick
Shamir
some people to
secret
share it
sharing
with?
scheme. You pick up to 5 trusted contacts, and it's like secret shared, like 3 of up to 5 among them.
Isn't that awesome?
That's nice. That's
Yeah.
very nice. Yeah.
It might be it's the first
Anytime somebody
possible
does
solution.
what I would do, it's real nice.
Yeah. Yeah, you and I talked about that like 15 years ago. We never deployed it yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, that suggests that there's a big mountain to climb to get privacy as usable as it needs to be for mass adoption. How much of a focus do you think that should be?
I want to add one more thing to it's not just the, that level of usability. It's to get a widespread acceptance of cryptocurrencies, you also have to make it be not a ridiculously volatile, mechanism. It's just so crazy volatile that nobody wants to use it for. I mean, just if you're only going to hold it for like an hour, you're going to buy it and then use it to transact something, to buy something on Amazon, and then it's a hot potato they've got to get rid of real quick because who knows what could happen an hour later, and they'll send you the goods after they exchange it somewhere, and it's it's something that you want to hold on because it's growing so fast and now you don't want to spend it, so everything just grinds to a halt. If that's the kind of volatility, I mean, that's going to slow everything down. Nobody's going to want to use money like that. It's not real money. It's not a currency. So if we want to make this scale up, we have to solve problems like that. I don't even think that's related to the cryptography elements of the protocols. That's some mysterious human inscrutable behavior that I have no clue about.
There are a bunch of experiments attempting to solve that right now going on in the cybercoins market.
Do you think that
They're called stable cybercoins.
Do you think
So is this your
privacy-
new term? Call them cybercoins?
Yeah.
This is great.
Crypto means cryptography,
This
cyber
you
means
got a
cybercoins.
zoom lens on this camera. Can you zoom in on this sticker? I've got
Okay.
a pocket full of these stickers here. It says crypto means cryptography.
Okay, I mean, I'm happy to call them cybercoins.
Now you need to
Cybercoins.
make some stickers that says cyber means cybercoins.
I do. I mean, I still.
That's
do
actually better
want,
because
like,
cyber is this overused, silly word that doesn't mean anything.
I know.
And so let's hang it on to Bitcoin
We can put it to better use.
Ethereum and Zcash.
And I do still want like a good overarching
Cybercoins.
name for the space.
I
That's
like
not
it.
blockchain.
Let's do that. How many industry leaders would it take to
3 out of
push
5.
that? I think so. Yeah. Let's do it.
I'm sure someone's already got cybercoins.com. The Twitter handle's gone.
Oh no, some squatter's going to get it now.
So to Phil's earlier point, yes, there are a whole bunch of usability and product and marketing and education and regulation and economics problems that also have to be solved. Oh, and scalability
No.
and privacy.
And I think like, one of the really benefits that the cybercoin space has provided to cryptography is that like a lot of like these projects, including just making the usability of cryptography work well and like these M events and so forth, like in order to really care about it, like you needed to have just been an idealistic person. There wasn't any, there wasn't any money, there wasn't any like large-scale social attention, there wasn't kind of institutional validation for it. And now, we have these coins, and these coins are apparently like legit, and like people, regardless of their culture, think they're legit because they have a market cap. And I mean, that's, I think, it's definitely legitimized working in this space, and I think it might, and the cybercoin spaces could easily prove to be a very productive testing ground for these kinds of technologies that could then be exported back to encrypted messaging or whatever.
Yeah, so much progress on cryptography has been generated over the past.
I mean, even just the entire general purpose.
Responding so well to this idea.
Like even just
cryptography.
the entire general purpose zero knowledge proof space. Like think of where it was in 2013. Think of where it is now. Like that's. And think of a very large part of that is like cybercoin money and cybercoin attention.
Yeah, and there's so many other non-coin applications that may now come along that would have been delayed for decades.
Because you have an open standard for account verification, which is MetaMask, and which, or more generally, Ethereum accounts that you have a network effect on.
Oh, I was just thinking about the general purpose zero knowledge proofs.
Oh, that too, yeah.
Oh,
but like, I mean, network, like even just network effects that you have these people with accounts, I think, is also something that we haven't been, we can talk about more.
Yeah.
Like, we really could have like a movement that says sign in with an Ethereum account or sign in with a Zcash account as an alternative to sign in with Twitter. And trying to like actually push that could be really interesting.
Huh.
Well, hey, there is some light. It sounds like we can win. But does that, is that at risk from, say, quantum computers? Is this all going to be for nothing when someone can use a quantum computer? And
now we're fine.
Okay.
In the last couple of years, I've been working on adapting post-quantum algorithms to widely deployed protocols.
Oh, cool.
At KPN, we did a project of taking WireGuard, which is a Linux VPN, and replacing the public key algorithms in it with post-quantum algorithms.
Cool.
And the next target is OpenPGP. So it might. We're probably about a decade away if we're gonna see quantum computers finally emerge. It'll be roughly that time scale.
Oh. I thought you were going to say a decade away from having post-quantum algorithms widely implemented in platforms.
Well, that might be enough. That might coincidentally be also true.
Yeah,
but we don't have that long because there is the archive today, analyze tomorrow problem.
Zcash
major intel agencies around the world are intercepting large amounts of traffic and archiving it in the hopes that many years from now they'll have quantum computers to cryptanalyze it. And when those arrive, and NSA says, get ready for quantum computers, so no matter how you feel about the NSA, if they tell you to get ready for quantum computers, you better fucking get ready for quantum computers,
Well,
and so we're not waiting for that because we're generating traffic today that will be archived and analyzed in a decade or 15 years or whatever the time factor is. And also, we're not going to know when the real operational quantum computers come online because they're probably going to be used by intel agencies quietly. So we've got to do it now. We have to take these, the various cryptocurrencies we have now and replace public key algorithms with these inconveniently large key size post-quantum replacements. And I saw your chart up there. and how you were, you know, agonizing over this size or this
Yeah,
size.
tens of kilobytes.
And you know, that's nice, but you know, it's not going to last long, and we're going to be forced at gunpoint to migrate to keys that are, you know, painfully large.
And at Ethereum 2.0, we take forward compatibility with post-quantum crypto very seriously. So one of the ideas that we've included is this concept of signature abstraction, which basically says that at least for like accounts in the shards, the public key algorithm is that your public key is a computer program, and signature verification is running the signature through the computer program with the message hash and checking if it outputs 0 or 1. So what that means is that inside of that you could write, like the defaults would be like possibly like Schnorr or BLS or whatever verifiers, but individual users could just on their own time decide to swap that out with post-quantum crypto without needing to like wait for any kind of like big global standardization events to happen. And so in general, like I'm not worried because post-quantum algorithms to do the things that we want to do exist. And for signatures encryption and zero-knowledge proofs, so it's just a matter of like having a good path to adopting them. One more thing I actually wanted to just randomly bring up that I think privacy people don't talk about enough, steganography. Like especially in the context of like either authoritarian regimes, but or just any other governments or even corporations. Like sometimes the thing that you're looking for is not just privacy of the exact thing you did, but also privacy of the fact that you used some particular protocol in the first place.
Yeah, but that doesn't scale.
That doesn't.
You can't. I mean, you know, many years ago, I got an email from some guy who put forth this idea. Wouldn't it be great if we could hide that message? And you know, he kind of laid out a description of steganography, and I said, well, congratulations, you've just invented steganography. And he said, well, what he wanted to do was to standardize it. You know, he wanted to have a standard for steganography, which is kind of analogous to having Samsonite luggage put a standard compartment for smuggling cocaine. You know, every Samsonite suitcase would have a special compartment for smuggling. That, you know.
I mean, I agree it's something that's not a kind of slam dunk win in the same way that hashes taking to the 128 time to reverse is a slam dunk win, but it does seem like something that you can have more of versus less of, and having more of it is good.
I disagree.
Okay.
I think that when you start using
steganography is not going to work.
When you start using steganography in anything but trace amounts, they're going to start looking for it.
Okay, that's.
So,
and it's hard. Steganography is hard. You know, the sort of naive explanation of just diddling the least significant bits of a bunch of pixels in a photo, it's not quite as easy as that. You have to do a statistical analysis of the photo and the noise characteristics and how the noise is distributed throughout the photo, and you have to use that information to inform you where to put the steganographic material, because you can't just uniformly apply it. It'll be more easily detected then.
But what does work is everyone running HTTPS and Signal and WhatsApp. That provides cover traffic for everyone.
So that was my closing question, which is actually, you know, what can people do to encourage greater privacy, either in cipher currencies or more generally?
Did you say cipher currencies?
Say
That's
that
a good
again?
word too.
Okay, yeah.
Cipher currencies is a good word too. The question is, what can people do to promote privacy?
Yeah.
What can
If
people
you're-
do to promote privacy?
Build it into your products. If you're an entrepreneur or an investor of whatever kind, think about the social effects of the privacy impacts of your product.
I think what I would try to do is just try to change cultural expectations, to try to make it so that if anybody raises that, you know, oh, isn't it bad to have privacy because, you know, it will help the criminals, you want to change the cultural view of that so that people roll their eyes when they hear it, you know. that it's just culturally accepted that that's a silly line of reasoning. That it fails to recognize that we have to protect ourselves. You know, the criminals and foreign intel agencies have the upper hand. We feel so comfortable as cryptographers that, you know, we've been ahead of the game for a few decades now. And we think that's a very comfortable place to be. But in fact, in the broader picture of cybersecurity, it's so lopsided in favor of the attackers. We're getting annihilated that way. It's vastly in the favor of attackers. And one of the few things that works is cryptography. We don't have that many tricks that work, but one of them is cryptography. And so we should be hanging tenaciously onto strong cryptography as, you know, don't take this away because we're going to get cut to pieces without it. And we really need to beef up the other parts of cybersecurity. You know, I think that what happens is that people who tend to be in particular jobs, they look at what makes their own job, just their own job, easier and screw everything else. And so, you know, this is why during the 90s, the FBI fought to the bitter end against relaxing export controls and tried to impose domestic controls, whereas NSA stepped back from that and said, let's not engage in this fight. NSA had a different approach to it. They were going to inject malware wherever they needed to exfiltrate keys. But people focus only on their own jobs and what's convenient for them. And for them to say that, oh, we have to limit strong cryptography. Well, what about the rest of society? What about the rest of law enforcement? There was a time many years ago where a guy sitting in a coffee shop in San Francisco with one of the early versions of the iPhone that was not encrypted. Some drug addict walked in the door and stabbed him with a knife and took his iPhone while he was busy bleeding and couldn't run after him. Well, you know, that's because, you know, mobile phones and smartphones were attractive targets of stealing, and to the, you know, where drug addicts can stab you. Well, maybe we can prevent people from getting stabbed by encrypting all the iPhones, which is what happened. Nobody ever stabs somebody to take their iPhone anymore because it's not going to work. It's encrypted and you can't open it.